Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I've had a lot of people ask me about this one. A lot of people said, Jason, we want to hear about this. We want to know your opinion on this because Bret Contreras has said that he thinks the hip thrust should be a primary exercise. So I went and watched his video. Actually, I listened to it 3 times. I have looked at all his EMG data and everything that he's got out there over the years. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Because I am known for being a minimalist. I am known for being against fuck-around-itis. I'm completely opposed to the concept of isolation movements. I think they're a complete and utter waste of time. I think they're useless for the most part, other than, you just feel like you really need them, right? They're there for psychological reasons, not muscular development or strength reasons, right? Because you think you need a tricep extension, so therefore you need a tricep extension, and then you get better results. Placebo. I don't think the data supports the use of single joint exercises, and I've looked at tons of it, including the supposed pro single joint research. It's just not there. Data doesn't support it. And I'm against excessive exercise selection. So that's what training minimalism means. Meaning, I don't think you need a wide variety of exercises to develop maximum strength, maximum size, anything else. So I looked at it and I started asking, okay, I looked at his argument and then I looked at the exercise itself. And I said, okay, is this a good exercise? Looking at the way it's executed. What's going on with it? What muscles are involved? Usually my criteria for a good exercise is usually an exercise where you're standing on your feet, right? Standing on your feet that utilizes a barbell, or an exercise where it moves your body through space, whether it's with a barbell or other weights added, right? So normally we would think of what would I define as really good exercises: squats, squat variations, deadlifts, deadlift variations, standing presses, power cleans, power snatches, weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, weighted chins, glute ham raises, right? These exercises fall into these categories. Those are examples. Stuff that doesn't fall into those categories has sport-specific uses or borders on uselessness. What's this exercise? And it needs to be easily loadable, right? It needs to have progressive overload. And I usually want the exercise to engage your core in some way. It needs to work the core. Every exercise needs to work your core. If it doesn't, it's probably not that useful of an exercise outside of a sport-specific context. Does a hip thrust loaded up with weight? Is it a multi-joint exercise where you're on your feet? Yeah, kind of on your feet. It's definitely a multi-joint exercise. Was it used for loading? Usually a big barbell. Does it move the body through space? Yeah. Yeah, it does. Is it easily loadable for progressive overload and trainable? Yes. Okay, so if we start looking at all the criteria I lay out for what makes an exercise, a good useful exercise, a good primary exercise, it does kind of meet those criteria, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It does. So if I were to be objective and set aside how I might feel about silly ass glute training and stuff like that, if I were to set all that aside and use my own criteria by which I define an exercise being useful and being a really good exercise, does the weighted hip thrust qualify? Yes, it does. Bret, and I do think he's biased towards glute training. He's the glute guy. I don't necessarily like everything he does or everything he has to say. In fact, I made fun of him in the past for talking about how amazing all his glute stuff was, and he was still weak at his first powerlifting. He was weak as hell on a squat. I kind of mocked that. I made fun of that. But when we start talking about things like possible injury prevention, the amount of muscles involved in this, some power lifters out there who are only doing the squat and the deadlift, are they running into injuries later in life? Yeah. Is this an exercise that, if incorporated as a serious movement that you train and take seriously and program, might it have the potential to put a lot of muscle mass on you, and particularly in areas that we need to strengthen? to be stronger, bigger, more athletic, maybe even lower injury rates on our squats and deadlifts and things like that in the long term. When I look at the arguments that Bret has made, and then look at what some coaches are doing with it, I'm kind of inclined to agree with him. You know, part of me wants to just blow this off and say, okay, this is total fuck around. This is borderline leapfrog and grab ass in the gym. But that's only when they start putting the bands and stuff around your knees and all that silly stuff, right? That's an issue. But when I think about it, just loading a barbell up and training the hip thrust as a primary exercise, you come in and you train with progressive overload a couple times a week, try to get as strong as possible on it. Could it have merit as a primary exercise? I think Bret presents a compelling case. I mean, if you were to ask me, Jason, would you think this is a more useful exercise than if you were to come in and do some curls? Yeah, hell of a lot more useful exercise. I mean, when we think about it from an athletic perspective, just avoiding potential injuries, getting stronger all the way around, getting your go muscles instead of your show muscles well developed, I think it has merit. I think Bret has an interesting case here. I'm almost inclined to agree with him, like to the point to where I'm actually considering maybe adding this as a 6 exercise for now, because where am I at right now? I'm rebuilding my posterior chain, right? I detrained quite a bit in the last couple months. I've started rebuilding all of it, having to do front squats for now, building those back up, started using Romanian deadlifts to start working my squats and deadlifts back in. I'm actually inclined to start messing with this lift. In fact, I played with it light this morning, like threw 135 on the bar and just cranked out about 10, 12 reps just to see how it felt. And, looking at it, and I look at the EMG data, is this an exercise I could use to get carry over to my squat and deadlift, maybe rebuild that area? Yeah, it actually might be useful. Do I know of serious people who are serious lifters who are doing it? He raised the example of Stephanie Cohen. She's a minimalist. Stephanie is not into large varieties of exercise selection. She is jacked. She is brutally strong. Yeah, I know people are going to say, well, she's also juiced to the gills, and that's true. That's true. But she does have a physiology background. She is a world-class level strength athlete. She is ultra jacked. She isn't hurt. She's been incorporating it. She uses it. A number of other coaches are incorporating it. I'm kind of considering, actually, after listening to his argument and going and looking at all of his data on it again and which muscles are involved in the muscle activation, and I start to think about the fact that, well, how many lifts am I telling people right now we really need? I have like a big 5, right? A big 5 or close variations. 3 of them are pretty much upper body exercises. 2 are lower body. Well, that's half your body. Could something like this bridge the gap? Be part of a big 6? Maybe. I'm actually considering messing with it. Yeah, I'm actually considering it. I thought he presented an interesting case. I thought he presented a compelling case. And I am resistant to new exercises. People need to keep that in mind. I tend to be a believer in the basics. I tend to believe you don't need more than the basics. I tend to believe going beyond the basics is, unless you have a sport-specific reason for doing so, is usually a waste of damn time. Misallocation of resources. I don't know, when I look at it, it makes sense to me. And I'm the person who's the first to reject stuff and say that's a silly ass goof off, jerk off exercise. I'm the first one to say that. I don't think that's the case in this point. I don't think it's the case. Like I said, I think he presented an interesting argument. And I'm almost inclined to agree with him here. I'm at least open to the idea. So people are wanting to know my opinion on it. I'm open to the idea. I would sure as hell call it 100 times more useful of an exercise than doing a damn concentration curl. Particularly if you're trying to get people strong, athletic, in shape. Yeah. I think so. Can it replace the squat? No, I don't. And that's where I'm going to disagree. I don't think you can replace the squat, your overall lower body development. I don't think it can replace the pull-up. But is it a potentially really, really valuable exercise that would have a lot of merit by programming as a primary exercise? Maybe so. And at worst, is it a really good accessory movement? Yeah, I think so. And that's what some powerlifters are successfully using it for, like Stephanie. So there you have it. There's my opinion on it. And I don't think people were expecting that. I think people were expecting me to totally bash this. But I didn't. All right, guys. Well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. And I will talk to you guys next time.